morning, everyone. It is Wednesday, June 3rd. I now call this regular meeting of the Wetaskiwin Regional Public School Board to order at 11 o'clock. I will begin with land acknowledgement. We acknowledge that we're on Treaty 6 territory, a traditional meeting ground, gathering place, and traveling route to the Cree, Saulteaux, Blackfoot, Métis, Dene, Nakota, Sioux, and Anishinaabe. We acknowledge all the many Indigenous nations, Métis and Inuit, whose footsteps have marked these lands for time immemorial. We respect the treaties that were made on these territories. We acknowledge the harms and mistakes of the past, and we dedicate ourselves to move forward in partnership with Indigenous communities in a spirit of reconciliation and collaboration. The next item is consideration of the agenda. Are there any changes or additions to the agenda? Seeing none, may I have a motion that the agenda for the June 3rd, 2026 regular board meeting be approved as presented? Thank you, Trustee Ware. Seconder. Thank you, Trustee Johnson. All in favor? Motion is carried. All right, next up would be approval. We just did approval of the agenda, right? Yeah. Sorry, I have that. Okay, approval of minutes. Yeah. From the May 2026 regular board meeting. Are there any errors, omissions, or corrections to the minutes? All right. Seeing none, may I have a motion that the minutes of the May 20th 2026 regular board meeting be approved as presented? Thank you, Trustee Wright. Seconder. Thank you, Trustee Morton. All in favor? Motion is carried. Okay, moving on to committee reports. I'll call on Trustee Johnson to give her report on the governance committee.
Thank you, Chair Dorchester. On May 20th, we reviewed the AP for inclement weather, and it is 132 inclement weather, and it has been reviewed and discussed. The AP has been updated and is now available on the website. We did have a discussion on Bill 25. The discussion occurred regarding Bill 25, an act to remove politics and ideology from classrooms and amend the Education Act. We did have a fairly long discussion about this, but decided there's really no position we have. And as ASBA spring general meeting was coming up, we decided to wait until discussion there. We reviewed the Wetaskiwin School Division Privacy Management Plan, which is an incredibly detailed document of protecting people's privacy with all the things new in technology. And I applaud Secretary Treasurer Reid and her team in pulling that together in a very short period of time. And I would recommend that policy, the School Division Privacy Management Plan be approved as presented.
Thank you, Trustee Johnson. Do I have a seconder? Trustee Morton, thank you. Is there any discussion?
I believe this will be available on the website for the public to see how much work is involved in maintaining the privacy of information. I just was incredibly impressed with the amount of information in that plan. It's a lot.
Thank you. So, any other discussion? Okay, seeing none, the motion on the floor is that the Wetaskiwin School Division Privacy Management Plan be approved as presented. All in favor? Motion is carried.
We also reviewed Policy 1 foundation statements. And with the new foundation statements that the board agreed on through our training this year, we amended Policy 1. So the recommended motion is that Policy 1 foundation statements be approved as presented.
Trustee Johnson, do I have a seconder? Thank you, Trustee Ware. Is there any discussion?
I would like to thank the board members for all the work that went into making the changes that we made to these statements and the thought that was put into coming together to make Policy 1 and revise it as we did. So thank you.
Any other discussion? Seeing none, the motion on the floor is that Policy 1 foundation statements be approved as presented. All in favor? Carried.
And then we discussed the small group schools grant survey that was sent out by the Rural Caucus. And again, as Rural Caucus was having a meeting at the ASBA conference down in Calgary, we decided that we would, I know that Karen and Mike had several conversations about how to answer this survey. And as far as I know, Mike, you answered this survey on behalf of Wetaskiwin Regional Public Schools. And it's disappointing that not all rural school boards participated in that survey because they weren't able to come to any consensus about what needed to be done. So we've left it in the capable hands of Trustee Lethbridge to light a fire. And that I would recommend that the minutes of the governance committee meeting held on May 20th be accepted as presented.
Thank you. Do I have a seconder? Thank you, Trustee Potts. All in favor? Motion's carried. All right, moving on to board representative reports. Is there a report for ASPA? No. We did have a ASPA conference recently. I think there was some good discussion and that happened there. Next up would be school council highlights. Who is the rep?
It was Andrew this time.
Okay.
Yeah, so the meeting was on May 27th. Trustees administration shared updates on several key divisional priorities and gathered feedback from school council reps. Discussion focused heavily on student voice and engagement, including results from student and community surveys and feedback from the recent student parent forum, which helped identify priorities around student success, wellness, communication, and school culture. The meeting also highlighted the new 2026 to 2029 education plan, which focuses on student achievement, safe and inclusive learning environments, truth and reconciliation, and preparing students for future success. Updates were shared on instructional reviews, implementation of Alberta's new curriculum, and supports being provided to staff and families during the transition. There was also a celebration of student opportunities and accomplishments in fine arts and athletics, including the WNBA Elementary Basketball League, which involved 350 students and drew strong volunteer support from high school students. Financial and operational updates included additional provincial funding to support classroom complexities and class size reductions, summer capital projects across the division, and transportation changes planned for the 2026-2027 school year. School council representatives also shared positive updates on strong family engagement and successful school events across WRBS schools. School council representatives also shared positive reports from their schools highlighting student achievement, strong participation in school activities and events, and ongoing efforts to support student well-being and engagement. Schools spoke about successful family and community involvement initiatives and the importance of maintaining strong connections between schools and the communities they serve.
Thank you very much. I believe there's no further board rep reports. We'll move on to my board chair report. I just want to take a moment to recognize a outstanding professional milestone within our board. I'm incredibly proud to announce Trustee Heikert has officially completed all 32 modules of the Public School Board Association of Alberta Trustee Professional. As we all know, effective governance requires continuous learning, but completing this entire curriculum represents an extraordinary investment in time and in a short period of time, so good on you, that's amazing. You've dived deep into everything from complex financial stewardship, legal framework, strategic planning, and advocacy. It's not just a personal achievement, it's a benefit to our entire school division. The advanced knowledge and insight that you will bring back to this table will strengthen our board's governance and our shared advocacy for public education. So thank you for that.
Awesome.
On behalf of the entire board and our school community, thank you very much for your unwavering commitment to the excellence of leadership. So good job. Okay, moving on to superintendent report.
Thank you, Chair Dorchester. A couple of, one good news item today to share is that the WRPS Grade 5 and 6 Divisional Choir sang at the Alberta Provincial Music Festival on Monday, May 25th. They performed very well, receiving a mark of 90 and a superior certificate ranking. The adjudicator spoke very highly of the musical selection, pointing out she was impressed with them singing Japanese and the movement and instruments we added to the songs. She also complimented our choir on a beautiful timbre with which they sang, their controlled breathing and their careful shaping of vowels. She could tell that they had good knowledge and practice of sound production. Very happy, Ms. Costello, who's the coordinator, was very happy with the performance, and we're excited for have so many of our parents who also came out to watch, and I think it's just fantastic. So just congratulations. And some of the students have never traveled to Edmonton before. And it's just, there we go. And just at this time, a big thanks to the board for also providing support, financial support and opportunity for our students. So when sometimes you don't realize what a difference you make in your governance decisions. Information item is attached to the June Indigenous Education newsletter, so that's for your information. I have 3 items for action. The first item for action is the Sherrill Friendship Society. We had a delegation here. You're good, Trustee Johnson. You're fine.
I will recuse myself from the vote.
We had a delegation here, and they not only were requesting funds, but before they requested funds, they just showed the impact that this opportunity has for students overseas in Japan, but also the impact that it has for our students and the community here in Wetaskiwin. And so as per policy 24, request for financial support, I'm looking for a motion that the board provide a monetary donation of $3,000 to the Sherrill Friendship Society for the 25-26 school year.
Thank you. You're prepared to make the motion. Thank you, Trustee Potts. Do I have a seconder? Trustee Norton, any discussion?
Sure, I'll speak to it a little bit. This is something we have traditionally supported. They did ask, for 2 years and we went ahead with the 1 year because we don't know where we're going to be next year. But it's definitely a benefit to their students, and we're happy to be able to find it in our budget.
Great, thank you very much. Any other discussion? Okay, seeing none, motion on the floor is that the board provide a monetary donation of $3,000 to the Assura Friendship Society for the 2025-2026 school year. All in favor? Okay, motion is carried.
Thank you. Next item for action is that we continue to work with the city of Wetaskiwin and their playground grants. There's been a discussion between administration and operations from the city of Wetaskiwin and WRPS. And so we're hoping to see that we can help work together in supporting opportunities for play in the city of Wetaskiwin. So I'm looking for a motion that the playgrounds follow-up be referred to the Facility and Finance Committee for further discussion.
Trustee Rank, thank you. Seconder. Thank you, Trustee Lethbridge. Any discussion? Yes.
Just, the continued partnership that we can build with the city, in providing some updated or safe spaces, or kind of looking at how we can impact the community is always a good idea.
Thank you very much. Yes.
I think the partnership between the city of Wetaskiwin and the school division, because our school parks are the main events in a lot of communities, but there are communities around town that could possibly share in the equipment or whatever. And I think that we need to acknowledge that the city is absolutely gotta be our partner in this, because we're not the only ones who have kids to play in our division.
All right, any other discussion? The motion on the floor is that the playground follow-up be referred to Facility and Finance Committee for further discussion. All in favor? Motion's carried.
Thank you. The next item for action is budget 2026-2027, and so I am going to take some time to just sort of talk about some of the budget considerations. First and foremost, I just want to make sure that everyone is aware that just a big thank you to you as a board. This is a conversation that started in December with you as a board and around projections and around the impact of what we're doing with some of your governance decisions in support of the financial stewardship that you do. And so it also was very important that, and I appreciate Trustee Hiker clearing some space on the Education Committee that allowed us to get through our board priorities discussions and making sure that your foundational statements were established, which then would help you in making some difficult decisions, some decisions that are good news, but also some decisions that are also representing financial stewardship, and that at the end of the day, any organization, anyone, more time and money is always an ask. So that being said, I'm just going to take you as a board through the work that you've done, and then we would be looking for a motion at the end. So at the end of the day, we in Wetaskiwin, WRPS, we are facing financial challenges. You've heard this from many other school divisions across Alberta that there are financial challenges, there's complexity challenges. But one of the financial challenges that are the cause of this is enrollment. And so when you've seen recent funding announcements, whether it's complexity, whether it's class size, or just simply student funding, it's all driven by student enrollment. So our revenue source is based on enrollment, as is other school divisions. We talked about our board priorities, and that potentially in a motion that would approve this budget, you as a board are staying committed to ensuring that our schools are safe, our schools are welcoming, ensuring that student achievement is at the forefront of all things we do, ensuring that our students, after they leave our system, that they're future ready, and also continue work in our truth and reconciliation journey, because there's so many gifts that we can take from our truth and reconciliation journey that benefit not just our students, but the community as a whole. And so in discussion of the budget with you over the last couple of months, for this upcoming year, we're looking at provincial revenue of $43.8 million. Enrollment driven. There are other grants that contribute to that, and some of this $443.8 million, there's some dollars that you are designated that you must spend in certain areas. The government has said, here's your dollar amount, it must be spent in this area, and it's not really subject to change. And that's part of the grant reporting process. Also in WRPS, we also receive federal revenue through our ESA, so our educational agreement with Muskogee Education School Commission, to the amount of $3.1 million. This is also attached to enrollment. So when you look at our enrollment trends, and if you were trying to see into the future, because that's one thing as a board, as you in your financial stewardship, is you're not only acting on budget of this current year, you're also projecting on what next year will look like, but also what the foreseeable future would be. And those type of discussions, which you've been leading with me and with the business services team, is around, okay, what can we do with our reserves? And this board has had, in the past 4 years, examples of where we've been paying down our reserves, which has been appreciated by the government. And I think clear direction from the government to school boards is to ensure that the money that you receive is actually being spent on the students of the year, and that you should not be sitting on a significant reserve amount. So that being said, since the regionalization of WRPS, we've experienced a sustained downward trend in student enrollment. In fact, this board over 10 plus years has had to make some difficult decisions. Some that involve closures of schools, including Rosebriar, Gwynn, Millet, reorganization of CP and McMurdo, and with the new build on the horizon, the reality that with the new build also comes the difficult decision that we will be closing the doors of Parkdale and Centennial. So the reality is that since our budget is driven by student enrollment, the divisions are experiencing growth, receive funding quicker. Why? Because in the last 5 years, we've gone from a 3-year weighted average to an adjustment enrollment methodology, which takes it to 2 years. So why has that been a change? There was some language coming from the bigger school divisions, for example, in Calgary and Edmonton, that said, you know what, we're getting students coming through our doors. We need the money. We need more money to offset the demands. At the same time, when they changed it to that 2-year adjusted enrollment methodology, if you're in a declining enrollment, which I think some of the trustees saw at ASBA, there are several divisions, especially in rural Alberta, that are in decline, that they're facing the financial hardships faster. I provide to you as the board here, and we'll be providing this information on our website, just a trend of our historical enrollment. This is something that's attached to birth rates. This is something that's attached to students attending WRPS. There's many contributing factors to enrollment, including also affordable spaces to live. And I think the one thing that, we keep challenging our communities is to provide living opportunities that attract families to come to Wetaskiwin County. One of the bigger revenue generating pieces that we have is around the Rural Small School Grant. This current year, 8 of our schools will be fitting into that category. That category is determined by your enrollment. And so when you're 155 students or less, you now go into a Rural Small School Grants threshold. There's some volatility though with this Rural Small School Grant. Now, depending on in the situation that we are planning for and budgeting for in WRPS with the will of the board, is to ensure that if in fact we have 1 or 2 students less in a small school, that impact to us is not $6,000. That impact to us is, in some cases, for one student difference is $189,000 difference. And in fact, what you, the board, is aware of, and we've talked about this quite a bit, is that we face the Rural Small School Grant reality that depending on where 5 or 6 students go and what school they're in, could have an impact to us of close to $600,000. I do know that your advocacy with government is listening. And I appreciate your advocacy as a board for continuing to champion the cause for rural small schools. That being said, we also have schools under 155 in the city of Wetaskiwin that meet this threshold as well. So I know it's called the Rural Small Schools Grant, but eventually I think it's going to be just called the Small Schools Grant. So when we talk about this advocacy, I think the one thing that you as a board, and I appreciate some of the strategic planning that you have taken on, whether or not you're sitting at the Zone 4, whether you're sitting at Rural Caucus, whether you're sitting at PSBA, I think it's very important that the message gets heard. And in some cases, the voices from people that are currently enduring this challenge, those are the most important voices to be at the table. Because you can speak to the real experiences, you can speak to our reality. But with the idea that schools of choice is significant in Alberta, and I appreciate the government support of choice. We support choice and student choice and voice in our schools. But that being said, there has to be something there that supports schools in rural communities. Because I think we're all in agreement that the schools are the life world of the community. The community is also the life world of the school, and we have to make sure that we're financially sustainable to offer that. Because when I talk about everything in school divisions being enrollment driven, people need some confidence that if they choose to move, or if they're looking for a place to relocate or to start their family, that when they make that decision, some of the services one of which is being schools, will continue to be there. We also talked about, and we've been advocating with government, and you as a board have been advocating with government and having discussions with each other around student complexity. And this is a common language that's out there. But our reality for WRPS is that student complexity doesn't recognize enrollment. Student complexity doesn't pick a day. And so I think it's very important that the public is recognizing that our schools, even though our enrollment is not as large as some of our metro friends are, we still have complexities. And where I just want to make sure people are still aware and still making sure that they advocate, and if they're asking you questions, is that when we did the complexity report as a school division and submitted it to the province, some of our schools did not meet the threshold, meaning 10 homerooms. Some of our schools did not meet that threshold to warrant consideration. But that being said, I think government is listening. Government will continue to listen, but with the recognition that if you're based on 10% of your student population across the province is complex, we as a school division, as I'm sure other school divisions do, but particularly at WRPS, we're above 17%. So from an advocacy standpoint, maybe the conversation should be around with students that are coded or in that severe category, there should be a different funding model allocated to those students. But that being said, when you talk about student support, you as a board are partnering with CASA, you're partnering with ISSP to address individual student learning needs. We have programming with MHCB in support of mental health and well-being. We also have the nutrition programming that's supported federally. And so I just really appreciate the board's commitment to putting as much dollars as we can in supporting students in our schools. But when it does come to that SLS funding advocacy, I do think there's an opportunity where not only it's one thing to ask for more, but it's also to have a strategy on what more could look like. And I think it's very important from a board standpoint, and I appreciate your direction, but with the consideration that a student that is coded as severe is consideration be given that it's a 3-to-1 funding ratio, meaning that you get 3 times the amount of the student funding grant for those students. And why? Because those students deserve support. Those students deserve support. All our students deserve support. And so there needs to be a balance beyond just the 10% of your enrollment. So in proposing this budget and having a discussion with you as a board, you as a board have landed on a budget that has a surplus of $246,000. And I think that's an important decision to make. It's recognizing that over the years you've spent down your reserves to a point right now where to access reserves any further would not be prudent. And so in putting forward this budget, we have been able to preserve programming. We have been able to preserve small class sizes. We have been able to preserve interventions. And so I'm very comfortable with you as a board moving forward with this. But that being said, is that with the budget of surplus, what does that mean? Well, first and foremost, you've heard a lot of discussion over this past year, especially with job action and so forth around class size. And so government just came out with a class size category, and they identified what would be considered a low class size, a moderate class size, or a high class size. Well, in improving this budget, please make sure that you are aware, and I know you are, but the public's also aware that we have no schools K-6 that fit into the high class size category. I'm not saying those schools and those classes don't require additional supports and complexity, but as far as the volume of students in our K-6, we're not anywhere into those categories. In fact, we have 21 classrooms in that K-6 that none of which fit into the high category. In our K-8 schools, we have 41 classrooms in low, we have 12 in moderate, and 0 in high. So once again, kudos to you as a board in moving this budget forward, that you are acknowledging class size is important and you're maintaining those supports in place to ensure the class sizes are small. The part that we continue to navigate and struggle with, knowing with new curriculums coming forward, is you as a board, you've had conversations with, you've heard schools talk about it, you've heard it at the forums, you've heard it when senior administration has talked to you, but split grades is our reality. And so right now, the number of schools with split grades are 9. Approximate classes of split grades, 28. And yes, with this budget, we are aware that with the good news that our schools are open. But we are going to have 3 schools impacted by triple grading. Do I feel that we have the staff to do this? Yes, we do. Do I expect our community to support this? Yes, I do. Because at the end of the day, we're the schools that are so important to the community, how the configuration looks is irrelevant as long as they have a school. And I think it's important. But do I know that there's some hard work there? For sure. And then the other part is reality is a lot of people, when they think about high school, you don't think about high schools as something around split grades. You know, most of you, when you went through high school, you went to a class and your peers were with you. But remember, we actually have a high school that fits into that rural small school grant category this coming year. And so our high schools have split grades as well. And sometimes, and obviously you have split classes, meaning it could be the same grade, but it could be a -2, -3 course being delivered. And so where I'm saying this is because kudos to our staff for executing these plans. And I really appreciate their professional agility in delivering the coursework. You see here, and we'll be sharing with the public what our projected enrollment is. And at the end of the day, when it comes to the approval of the budget, we talk about reductions. We will be reducing our physical education coordinator position. We will be reducing our finance coordinator position, reducing but not eliminating. We will be putting some dollars aside to continue to provide the opportunities for singing. We'll be providing some opportunities for students to play and to be sweaty messes, as I call it, because with the feedback that you've heard as a board around the piece around, you know, community coming together to play is so important. You just heard me in a good news item talk about our divisional choir that just got superior certificate at the provincials. And so we're continuing, and kudos to you as a board to challenge each other and challenge senior administration to see we maybe can't maintain its current entity, but we can do some of it. Itinerant teachers, there's going to be a reduction there, but that doesn't mean that the students are not going to see a significant change. It's just we're just downsizing some of our schools, but you are going to see some itinerant work. You are going to see a reduction in the hockey academy that where grade 5 and 6 programming in Millet and Wetaskiwin will not be offered. You are going to see then the PLRS family of schools, the hockey academy will not be offered there. You will be seeing the hockey academy continue to be offered in grades 7 and 8 at Griffith Scott and Clear Vista, as well as maintaining the programming that's been along for many years at the comp for the purpose of credits. In approval of this budget, kindergarten at Parkdale and Centennial will not be offered next year in 26-27. Yes, kindergarten is not mandated, but at the same time, we know that we have to work with our families to ensure that they have places to land. Why the decision around kindergarten at Parkdale and Centennial? Our enrollment numbers were just not there. And so we've already been reaching out to some families to ensure that they have a place to go, a place to land, and so we'll continue to have those conversations. The other part that I wanted to say where you are going to see an impact in the city as well as in the county is the elimination of the Learn to Skate program. It was obviously something that was well received, but it's something that was an add-on. It's not, and so when we're making that decision, right versus right, do we want to try to continue to support interventions in the classroom? Yes. And so there's some things that when you face those right versus right decisions, this was a decision that doesn't come easy, but at the same time, there will be other opportunities for students. And then the other part you're going to see is an elimination of centralized CTF options. So for the last couple of years, we've been working with our schools to try and offer practical arts, I call it, in all our city schools, because not all our schools, i.e. Parkdale, have a wood shop and so forth. That being said, schools will be moving back to their own school hosted options. So the good. Just a big thank you to you as the board in supporting some of the difficult decisions, one of which is our admin cap. We are below our admin cap. And by being below our admin cap, what it's allowing us to do is redirect $599,000 from senior administration, which the government would say we would be able to use in central office back into the operations at schools. So thank you to you for that. Thank you for you two also supporting the admin cap, because I do recognize that when We are below the admin cap. That does impact our availability potentially, sometimes to meet with each other, but I think it's just a commitment to our classes. I've talked about the good with our small class sizes. You've seen the data where there's no schools that are currently in that high class size category as determined by the government of Alberta. Programs, we're continuing to offer programs, we're continuing to offer opportunities. We're also, and when I talk about programs, and I'm also going to talk about future readiness, we still need you as governors of the system and you as trustees to advocate with government, because we are moving forward with the careers program that we've started over the last 2 years, but we need to ensure that that grant is received. There's some potential red tape where it's held up into the world of government. I know they're going to work forward on this, but at the end of the day, it's clear the Premier's mandate is around future readiness and trades and so forth, so one would assume. Also in our support of our mental health capacity building programming, we're still waiting for that grant to be received. We're very confident that it will happen, but any opportunity you have as trustees to advocate with government to expedite these grants really help us in our planning. And I think the reality of the good of the one thing when I look at this budget, and you've debated over this over the last couple of months, and even as recently as today and last week, was that clearly your board priorities that you talk around student achievement, around truth and reconciliation, around a safe place to be, and around being future ready, you in approving this budget have directed funds beyond the enrollment dollars back into the classroom to provide opportunities for kids. Your budget total is over $53 million. Your grant summaries are provided with regards to learning loss, field testing, CAS, I've already talked about nutrition. Some of the key highlights out of the 53 million, $38+ million goes to staffing. Our transportation is over $3 million. Our maintenance and facilities is over $2 million. And you as governance is $400,000. And I think kudos to you as a governors to try and keep those expenses as low as possible. I provided you a breakdown of costs. I provided you a breakdown here of total budgets, the projected revenues and expenses, and this is the part when we talk about rural small school grants. Some of our schools out of the 8 are currently in a positive standing when it comes to revenue, but knowing when I talked about 1, 2, or 6 students, depending on what school they land in, and if one of those families decide to leave one of those small schools that are eligible for the grant, it could have an impact of up to $189,000 per student. What I am looking for, Chair Dorchester, is a board motion that the 2026-2027 budget be approved, and further that the 2026-2027 approved budget be referred to Facility and Finance Committee for reporting and monitoring purposes.
You be prepared to make that motion? I'll make a motion. Thank you, Trustee Rake. Seconder? Thank you, Trustee Bear. Is there any discussion? And do you want to?
Yeah, I can start. More of a summary piece. We as a board here have spent a lot of time and effort and discussion and learning with the budget process, what this looking like with reductions. And it's not an easy budget to pass. A lot of hard decisions had to be made. But looking at the results of where we sit with some of our priorities, I feel that our budget fits right in with our priorities to push us forward. Now we can feel confident as a board down through the administration staff to our teachers. I'm confident that we can push this budget forward to receive the results that we're looking for with student achievement, stewardship, and truth and reconciliation.
Thank you. Any other discussion?
With increasing complex learning, behavioral, and mental health needs, WRPS faces a funding gap which adds a significant pressure to our budget. We've seen some reductions across the division to various programs and services. These were not made lightly. The priority that subject educational programming remains sustainable and accessible for all students was felt by us all. I don't necessarily love our budget. However, I do still support it. I also appreciate all the hard work and the very many changes that went into this to support our mandates as well as our priorities.
Yeah, and so the reality is our student needs keep increasing and the funds aren't keeping up to that. So the specialized supports that we need now exceed the level of current funding that we're receiving for them. So I think we've done a good job with what we have. We've prioritized students wherever possible, the low class sizes. We heard 60 in the low range, 40 in the mid range, and that's the K-8 classes. And I believe in this budget, and I think keep our eye on investing in student achievement, and we'll do okay.
Trustee Johnson?
I just want to say, Mike, you thank the board, and I would like to thank our central office administration team. They have been probably amongst the most adaptable group of people. The changes that have occurred within this office in the last 5 years is incredible. And I thank each and every one of you for your commitment to the kids in our division. You do important work that helps us make decisions, and that's no small feat. And the fact that you take the time and adapt to whatever that man asks you to do on any given day, kind of blows me away. And I've often thought I'd like to see her job description. I can't imagine. And I think that for the most part, you new people don't see what I have seen over the years, is how adaptable this office is depending on what the minister of the day is asking of them. So just as you appreciate us, Mike, I appreciate you and your team very much. That's from my heart.
Trustee Martin?
I imagine that no budget is easy, but I just wanted to say thank you to senior admin for allowing us to have the discussions and answering our questions and re-explaining things over and over again. When this budget first came out, I was very disheartened, but I think now we are in a really good place, and I feel confident that our students are still going to excel. We have great supports here, and I think our school teams go above and beyond every day, so I have full confidence in them, and we are so grateful that we can keep our small schools open.
Thank you.
Yep, I just wanted to also thank the superintendent and the staff and all the work that they have done, and just the impact of the valued programs and services, like the big cut to Jordan's principal was quite disheartening, but these decisions were not made lightly, and we understand the impact of these changes that have on students, staff, and families. However, we must ensure the core educational program remains sustainable and accessible for all students while also supporting student choice. So thank you for all your work.
Yeah, I can support this budget. I see that we're doing more with less, and I don't think every school board can say that. As a new trustee, I want to thank our financial team and Superintendent Wake for the kindness and patience that you have shown us and encouraging us. You're helping us to learn everything in the world of finance in schools. It's not an easy job, and your hard work is not unnoticed. As the trustee representing rural communities, I am concerned about the instability of the rural small school grant. Small changes in enrollment should not result in significant funding losses that jeopardize the sustainability and community of our rural small schools and area. In our division, a change of 6 students can trigger a loss of almost $600,000. My commitment to advocacy continues as I protect small rural schools from funding and sudden clawbacks. I feel that my job is to ensure that rural public school divisions receive not only stable and predictable funding, but fair and equitable funding for all of our students in all of our communities.
Thank you. If I may, I just did have a comment. I wanted to acknowledge that this budget, as Trustee Reich said, required tough decisions. It reflects real pressures we're managing, enrollment realities, rising costs, and growing student needs. And I want to recognize administration for the work that went into building this budget. And Shannon, thank you. I know you took a major lead part in this, so thank you very much for all your work there. And I also want to recognize something important about our rural context, as we've discussed. Boards before this board here in Wetaskiwin have made conscious decisions to support, small rural schools because they matter to families and the health of communities. But the strongest long-term support for any small school is enrollment and engagement. And speaking to the public now, if you know someone or a family that's considering their options, I encourage you to tell them to connect with their local schools, take a tour, and consider enrolling locally. Any other comments? Okay, seeing none, the recommended motion on the floor is that the 2026-27 budget be approved, and further that the 2026-27 approved budget be referred to the Facility and Finance Committee for reporting and monitoring purposes. All in favor? Motion is carried.
Thank you. Attached is board action and referral, and that's it for my report.
All right, thank you very much. Moving on to upcoming events, we have an education committee meeting Wednesday, June 10th at 8:30 a.m. Committee of the whole regular board meeting and governance committee on Wednesday, June 17th, and an organizational meeting on Wednesday, June 24th. And if there is no further business, may I have a motion to adjourn? Thank you, Trustee Heikert. Seconder, thank you, Trustee Potts. All in favor? Thank you. Motion is carried. Meeting is adjourned at 11:49. Thank you, everyone.